Hello everyone, HazzaJC here. Welcome back to my YouTube. Today we are doing my VALORANT Champions Pick'ems. We are back, we're ready for another Pick'ems. This time it's the group stage, of course, for champs. We'll move on to playoffs in about 10 days or so. But for now, what's changed and what can I get from doing my Pick'ems? Well, firstly, these are the rewards that we've got. Got the Eureka Spray, the Goat Buddy for top 50%. Not aiming for this one. The top 20% is what hopefully we're going to be landing in, should do. And perfect picks, 100%. Still nobody in the world has this, so maybe we'll be the first. And if you hop on with the ride with me, maybe you'll get it too. Why should you trust anything I say? You probably shouldn't, but if we go ahead and look through here, we got the Gongi Buddy. This was Seoul 2024. And Masters Toronto, the Sweet Victory Buddy. So we have credibility. But back to the Pick'ems, there is something new for this event, and that is factions in the community. So depending on whoever your favorite creator is, you can also get additional rewards. And I'm going to go through very quickly what those actually are, summarize it for you. 10s, Pay Respects Buddy. See here, Wayfinder card for Sassy, Love Bite, Tarek, some sprays, some other stuff, and the last one here, Justice Served. And this is a hammer for Zareta, who, for those who don't know, is the organization owner for Mandatory. They have a hammer in their logo. I don't know if there are any other inside jokes here, but essentially, whichever one of these you don't have and maybe you want, go join that faction and you might get a reward. I'm also going to be going through my picks on VLR at the same time because I think it's really important to contextualize what the GSL groups look like and what matchups we're actually more likely to get. Starting off with Group A. Now, if we go ahead and make our picks, one thing that I have seen from everyone who has made a pick'em so far, the general consensus is that Paper X walk through this group. Now, the reason for that, they've looked pretty flawless so far in Stage 2. They got a Grand Finals win against RRQ. And look, despite the one setback in that game against Zeta Division, they've looked really consistent. The Masters Toronto winners are actually in good stead coming into the next international, which is not something you see all too often. But I think since Patman has joined, he's really helped increase that floor a little bit. The micro plays really enabling the playstyle of Paper X when you have such a consistent backbone. And look, maybe there's a world where I can put them second here and snub them a little bit just for the hopes that I can get a little couple extra points over people who might have predicted otherwise. But you'd be kind of stupid not to just lock them in first here. So that's what I'm going to go for. The rest of Group A, though, is where things start to get interesting. And I've seen the whole discourse between who gets second spot, is it GX or is it Sentinels? And the main narrative is Sentinels have the experience, and for GX, 4 out of those 5 players have never been to an international event. I've been really impressed with Cloud's in-game leading so far for this team, and the skill ceiling of the individuals is fantastic. When Arrow's on form, he looks unreal. They swept the game against BBL. External factors were obviously very important there, but they kind of prove that they can hang with some of the better teams. The win over FNATIC also came with the limitations of they felt very burnt out by that point in the calendar. But I don't think you can look past the fact that this is a team of young and hungry individuals who really want to prove themselves. Names like Grabinho, who were on Koi in the first stage, and with the potential always being there, not quite seeing it happen. Sentinels, on the other hand, have had a pretty poor second stage so far, or at least one which sits below the expectations that come with a team like Sentinels. When you consider the fact they went out in lowers to an NRG, which a lot of people are very hyped about, and for good reason at the moment, it just didn't feel like their level, right? That they lost a map here and there to teams like 2G, for example, who are obviously fighting for their own survival. But yeah, it doesn't feel like the kind of Sentinels that you expect to make a deep run. Now, whether they best GX here or not in the opening match, which is also important to mention, it's why I go back to this bracket, it kind of sets up how things start. Then the other side to it is you've also got Gili in here as well, right? Like, they're kind of just chilling while all of this is going on. I really don't know where to sit about these guys, because on the one hand, they picked up No Man, come from the local scene, the Beacon circuit in the UK, people will be familiar with him. Rag is having some carry games. Happyway's always been a bit of a demon, but then you look at the matches and sort of what they're actually playing. Either they're running a triple Sentinel Lotus comp, which we saw like M80 pull off, I think, in Tier 2, like a couple of years, like Bitfix as well, teams that used to run this. Waylay on Bind as well was a bit crazy. Like, I really don't know. I feel like they're not blowing anyone's socks off, but at the same time, there's always going to be an upset somewhere. Do they maybe sneak a better place here? I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm just going to ride the GX train. I think they could potentially make it out of groups. If you want to flip it with Sentinels, it's obviously probably pretty fair as well. Like, I'm not going to dunk on anyone who goes for either of these two teams, but this is like the most generally accepted Group A prediction. Is there a world where we maybe see like a little bit of this? Potentially. It kind of depends if GX are going to crumble or not when they step onto that stage for the first time. Swiftly moving onwards to Group B. Now, this is a funny one. I think a lot of people enjoyed seeing the group draw for this one. We have BiliBili and FNATIC with Crashies from the NRG upsets of years gone by.
BiliBili are going 0-2. But you think BiliBili are going to beat NRG, don't you?
I think there's something in there somewhere, man. It's really unthinkable. Might just be happening, and it has!
In the same group, we've got MIBR and we've also got RRQ. So two teams which we saw at Toronto. In fact, every single one of these teams was at Toronto. But for MIBR and for RRQ, it was one of disappointing results. I don't think RRQ looked as good as people were hoping. That's sort of been the story with them this year. This one for me is probably a little bit easier to just do my working out as we go through the group. So starting off with BiliBili versus MIBR. MIBR ended up getting into champs on points, as most teams do, but they didn't make a deep run, and that's what ultimately made up for it. Their previous results going to Toronto, albeit not exactly shining there as much as you'd expect. And even when you look at the lineup, having Verno in there, it feels like they're papering over the cracks. It's a temporary solution to a Brazilian team, which, we've not really seen Brazilian teams perform all too well so far in this year. It feels like the scene needs to get itself back in shape. A lot of people calling even for there to be like a Brazilian league to help channel that talent through. I know that we've already heard rumors of Leviathan moving towards, like a Latin American core and taking Spike, one of the big Brazilian national talents, with them. So I feel like, their scene is just not in the healthiest of places right now. And there's a world where you can pick them to just turn up to champs and win because it's Aspas at the end of the day. And you're always going to see these points come up with a lot of different teams, with MIBR, with EDG and Kung Kung, for example. There's always going to be that element to it. It's champs season, and it's ultimately anybody's game. It's Valorant. Anything can happen. But BiliBili have had a consistent year. They finally hoisted the CN trophy. They're looking in form, and the way that they play is so disruptive, so aggressive, that if you're not a team which is capable of having those protocols in place, creating the right reactions, dealing with YZ, who's picked up his first MVP regionally as well, it's just absolutely huge. So I think BiliBili will go through this first game. I'm going to see them in this quali game. I pitched them up against FNATIC as well. Anyone who saw them crash out of playoffs would have been massively surprised. It was a shock to the system. FNATIC always in it to win it. I think they've only dropped to the lower bracket in recent memory, maybe in like Stage 1 2024, and both kickoffs, of course, because FNATIC don't do well in kickoffs. Where do FNATIC also not do well? Coming into champs. And I wonder if this time, the fact that they have got a little bit more runway after being burnt out, players, staff, both addressing that fact, 70 plus maps, including EWC as well. It's a frustrating place to be, but you kind of believe that they're quietly working on in the background and getting things in place, because you even look at this roster, I think it's been put together really well. You need Kayak in form. Dropped off quite a bit. I think his defender sides were especially good, but it's usually the attack where you want him to take control and have that kind of autonomy that leads FNATIC forward. That's why he did so well to sort of replace Durka, I suppose. Big shoes to fill. His clutch factor as well. Like, he's just so instrumental to this FNATIC team being successful. He needs to perform if they're going to do well in champs. And with that stage experience under his belt, I think he can. I'm full faith in FNATIC here. At least for them to make it to playoffs, and from that point onwards, look, we go for a rain check on them and see how exactly it is that they're performing by that point. Then you come to the elimination game. I think RRQ make it through this one. Honestly, I'm still just not rating MIBR quite highly. There are probably a little too many issues going on with them right now to feel super comfortable in picking into them, but still the possibility that it could go anywhere. RRQ's year has kind of been summarized by poor international performances, even with Monyet coming in, just elevating the level completely. You know, he was in tears when they qualified to champs. It meant a lot to him. Can BiliBili then bounce back in the second game? For some reason, I'm just leaning towards RRQ. I feel like we've not seen the full potential of this team, and it would be a real shame to not get any more from them. Am I underrating BiliBili here? Like, probably. I think BiliBili, for most people, will be the favorites to go through. And honestly, there'll be people who probably even think that they can win this game against FNATIC. And they maybe even come in as favorites. But I'm just leaning more towards this FNATIC RRQ 1-2 finish, because it's pick'ems. You got to make a gamble here and there. Nobody has 100% for a reason. This is what I'm going to go with. And honestly, look, we've still got a few days until the event starts, and when it does, I am going to be co-streaming all of it. It's going to be on Twitch and on my YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of that. It's time to move on to Group C. Yeah, I might change this. Who knows? This group is nasty. I don't think there's necessarily a group of death this time around. It all feels fairly balanced in terms of seeding, which is funny considering you got GiantX coming in at number 2 for EMEA, FNATIC number 4, right? It's all a little bit topsy-turvy. But we've got a group with Liquid, DRX, NRG, and EDG. I think every single one of these teams has a valid argument to make it out of this group stage. And I'll go through them one at a time. For me, Liquid, probably the favorites for this group. And honestly, might be my pick to take champs at the end of the gauntlet. I'm feeling really good about this team. Trex has come in, and with everything behind him, you know, people saying he's unworkable with as a teammate and all of that. This is another Nat success story for me. He has been the final piece to the puzzle. We had Kamek, we had Serial come in, but neither of them fulfilled the role that Liquid really wanted. They were kind of stretched onto agents they didn't want to play. Seen a bit of a shift in meta, which has facilitated more double duelist as well, which means we're getting even better performances out of Kiko, who has been locking it down, by the way. From watching this guy playing for Apex in 2023 up until now, it's just been an absolute pleasure to see his growth, honestly, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does internationally. Liquid had been a little bit below par. They had that sort of comeback against PRX, but they just feel a lot more solid as a unit, and if Trex can stay in form as well, his clutches have been insane. Like, I think this team are a genuine contender at this point, and if you were to write them off otherwise, I think you'd sort of be lying to yourself and everyone else. But then it's the other teams that make things interesting. Starting off with DRX in this triad that we have to try and figure out. It's another one of those teams where I'm just thinking of 2 words. Champs season. These guys always make, 2 more words, 5th, 6th. They always finish 5th, 6th. And for that, that's making it into playoffs. Now, is there too much to be excited about for these guys? Probably not. They snuck in because Talon bottled a 2-map lead in their best of 5 against RRQ. But that's the situation as it is. They had been good enough in the previous portions of the year to make playoffs, rack up points. In terms of players to watch, I think it's been the Hyunmin show. This is a player who has barely gone negative all year, been putting up really consistent performances, and making DRX look like they can actually go ahead and win some matches when otherwise they've sort of been struggling. Even when they're not performing too well, Hyunmin is always there. He's shown us a little bit of Waylay too, which makes things interesting. So they're not just relying on the standard compositions. And I've seen quite a few people kind of believe that they do make it into the playoff stage here. And right now, this is looking like a pretty Pacific EMEA biased set of pick'ems from me. Does that change? I think so. I think so. There are some other strong candidates here. Firstly, NRG, and next, EDG, right? Looking at these two, NRG looking a lot better since they've made the move back to Ethan on in-game leader and bringing in Scuba from Tier 2, playing in Challengers North America. He was with Cuba Academy, which is the Sentinels Academy team, for those who aren't aware, and has been performing really well. We've also seen Mada actually stepping up to the kind of level that people were anticipating from him. I remember back in the off-season, NRG were one of people's favorites to be winning Americas, to be going to international events, immediately having a really high level of play. Fundamentally, they look good. And finally, they've been able to regroup and actually show us what they're made of. With the other team left, EDG, this is another team which have those two words attached to them. Champ season. Think about last year, defending champions. But this year for them has just not been at the kind of level that we'd come to expect from EDG previously. They've always been in the playoff stages, flying the flag for China, who were underrepresented up until that point, I think. Look, no one was expecting them to blitz through the upper bracket as well as they did. And even in the final against Heretics, after watching that first map of Haven, I thought, they look a little bit shaken here. Like, they don't get back into this. Then comes Sunset. You get the point, right? They were there for the big moments. You even look at the home screen right now. Hold on. Look at the home screen. Who's this? This is Kang shooting Miniboo out of the air with the MVP bracelet on his wrist. Very nice touch, by the way, Riot. Like Kang in a champs event, you've heard the speeches. You know that he's giving us Socrates level dialect every time he goes in the sort of pre-show hype movies. Could they undercut NRG here? Because for me, I feel like Team Liquid, fairly safe lock-in. FNATIC, I trust in the bounce back. Paper X, yes. All of these second teams, though, it's such a toss-up in what you would probably consider to be the elimination matches. Do you know what? EDG, Jayo. Lock them in, man. EDG, Jayo. We're locking them in. I think one of the things going for EDG, though, is they do have a pretty good corrode. They've been running double duelist on a lot of maps. This one where you have Gianni, the new boy, who's come in for Simon on the Neon, and Kang on the Yoru. Now, Kang's never really been like a massive Yoru player. I think it's the current meta has been a learning curve for him to kind of adapt to an agent where you're not completely self-sufficient, right? You're setting up your teammates. You're kind of playing that playstyle rather than how he usually is with the op. He can find himself a little bit more form. Absolutely no reason why not. Screw it. EDG in here. And honestly, guys, look, these are the pick'ems I'm presenting. Am I going to pivot off camera? Probably. We'll see how the coming days influence what I end up sticking with. But for now, this is where my head is at. And yeah, you can take a look at the bracket here. So it should be Liquid moving through first. Maybe NRG win this initial game, but then it's into those rematches where EDG really start to come alive. Group D, final group. See if we can speed run through this one a little bit to stay on time. It's not exactly any easier to predict, but G2 have been favorites all year, right? Back to back to back. Not seen that from an Ascension team before. Certainly not seen that happen outside of China. You know, EDG, the other team to have achieved such a feat. They went on to win champs. G2 have been harping on about a golden era all year long, but we just haven't seen it in playoffs. Bangkok Grand Final, the furthest that they were able to get, and they do find themselves in the same group as T1, the team that were able to take it there in the end. And I think when I look at G2 right now, that you've got Leaf coming back in after not being available to play due to health concerns. Really happy to see him back, so wishing all the best for him with the team here. And yeah, the fact that they've been able to sort of consistently plot course even when he was away just kind of speaks volumes of the system they've been able to create, how good their macro looks, their fundamentals. The caveat is that Americas, on the whole, have been a weaker region than most, which is strange to say, but there has been a slight shift over the year where you're seeing teams like GiantX pop up in EMEA, BBL, like other names, a little bit more depth, even in Pacific, RRQ. We've got Talon who came really close, but weren't quite there. Americas is in a really weird spot where they have this super dominant team towards the top end, and then maybe what does the rest look like? Will G2 be flying the flag for them? Absolutely. I think this is the team, especially when you look at the bracket. First game Heretics, though, does bring a unique set of circumstances, because while Heretics had to rely on Team Liquid to bag them qualification, taking a backseat for playoffs after going out 0-2 to BBL and Na'Vi, teams which historically they've never really lost to. It was their first loss to BBL this year after beating them every other time, and their first loss to Na'Vi since sort of like the beginning of the partnered era, I'm pretty sure, back when Na'Vi were obviously a titan and the kind of team you expected to see at Champs. We haven't seen them since 2023, of course. It's now or never with this Heretics team. If they don't get it this year, do I expect changes? Not necessarily. They have a very solid group. Everything leans towards this being their opportunity. Have they given themselves the best lead up into that to find liftoff? Probably not. The beginning of Toronto wasn't great. I think you need players like Rians to be performing at their absolute best if you want to get carried through. I think we need to see Miniboo with peak confidence, and someone just has to step up in the mid-rounds. Their attack sides did really struggle at points where there wasn't that one voice that gave them direction. Boo was speaking about it a lot, saying like, look, in this team, sometimes we felt a little bit directionless, especially in the game against Paper X on their Icebox, for example, just waiting for something to happen and nothing happens. I don't want to over-dramatize it, but genuinely, that they've had everything kind of fall into place coming into Stage 2 playoffs. They've been flawless in groups, and then it's just in these elimination matches where they struggle. I kind of just have them sneaking in here, though. Other team I would have wanted to maybe put in here would have been DRG, but I think without Vukashu, as cool as it is to have Demon 1 back, a Champions winner in his own right, it completely changes the dynamic in the team, right? I don't see Demon 1 playing Cypher, for example. Like, Vukashu plays Duelist, but he also has really effective lurks. And the way that he fits into that system, how are the comms going to look? It's too many questions for me right now, and too much concern probably to me having them much higher here. T1 are the final team, and I think they probably do just sit outside of playoffs for now. DH coming in has looked really good, to be honest, and I think that's one positive change that they'll be taking in to this event. You've got Meteor as well, Bangkok MVP. I think he has looked fantastic in spells, and he's always someone to be thinking about in these events, and maybe they are a top 2 team. I think the EMEI bias has well and truly crept in, as I have predicted them in every single one of these. You know what? Maybe I will pivot. Maybe we will go T1 and put Heretics out. Maybe that's the motivation that they need. There's definitely a world where Sentinels even take it over GX, and I'm going to keep deliberating over all of these choices. This is just me giving you all the rundown on what I think could potentially happen. I will be back when playoffs start to check back in with my thoughts, see how things have been going, but lots to be thinking about. Feel free to debate me in the comments. That's what I'm here for. All a bit of fun and games. Let me know which teams you're going to be picking, and make sure to tune back in for my co-streams on this channel and on Twitch over the event so we can watch Champions Paris together. I've been HazzaJC. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.